This conference will now be recorded.
6 o'clock on June the 9th, 2022. Call to order. We'll start with executive session. Pursuant to the following designated section of the Texas Government Code, annotated Chapter 552, Texas Open Meetings Act, the council may convene into an executive session to discuss the following. A, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, pending or contemplated litigation, settlement offer, or to seek advice from attorney. ETJ/Newark CCN/Future Water. Section 551.072, deliberation regarding real property, purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, if deliberation in an open meeting would have detrimental effect on position of the government body in negotiations with a third person. Section 551.074, personnel, discuss appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, or hear complaint or charge against officer or employee in executive session unless officer or employee requests a public hearing. That'd be city administrator and public works director. And D, section 551.087, deliberations regarding economic development negotiations to discuss or deliberate regarding commercial or financial information that the city has received from a business prospect that the city seeks to locate, stay, or expand in or near the city and with which the city is conducting economic development negotiations. All right, let's start out with the ETJ, Newark, CCN, and Future Water.
This conference will now be
Ninth, 2022, we will convene into regular session. No action will be taken as a result of executive session. All right. I believe Pastor Harrison. Yes. My gosh, I got socks older than you. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to the flag. All right. Okay, we're going to go to public comments. The council is not permitted to take action on or discuss any comments made to the council at this time concerning an item not listed on the agenda. However, a council member or mayor may make a statement of fact regarding the item, make a statement concerning the policy regarding the item, and or may propose that the item be placed on a future agenda or direct the city administrator to contact the individual to address. If you are attending the meeting via live streaming and you would like to make a comment, public comment, you must email the city secretary at citysecretary@cityofrome.com prior to 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting and must identify each subject you plan to present to be recognized. Number 2, if the writer of a public comment wants someone to read the letter, it will only be read by the city secretary and must be emailed prior to 4 p.m. on the date of the meeting. Public comments made in person require the speaker to submit the sign-up form to the city secretary prior to the meeting, and the form must identify each subject the speaker plans to address. A statement of no more than 3 minutes may be made. There will be no yielding of time to another person. Comments should be directed to the entire council, not individual members. Engaging in verbal attacks or comments intended to insult, abuse, malign, or slander any individual shall be cause for termination of time, privileges, and removal from council chambers. And Ms. Odom, do you have some public comments for us?
Yes, ma'am. I have one to read from Deborah Beecraft. Says, Council, staff, Mayor, before voting to allow the seismic survey to be conducted on our town, please take into consideration the following. 1. They do not know how these vibrations will affect medical devices such as pacemakers. 2. They have not guaranteed that this testing will not damage existing foundations of homes and buildings that are over 100 years old. 3. They have tried to assure us that the testing will cause no damage to our roads and infrastructure, but are paying the city $10 an acre and homeowners $25 an acre to exempt the company from paying for any damages in case it does. Isn't that something to think about? Number 4, we don't allow semis to use our roads as thoroughfare. Why allow something larger? We know what big trucks do to our roads. This test will be done in the hottest part of the summer when the roads are the softest and easily damaged by large heavy vehicles. 5. If a sewer or water lines are under that road, get damaged or broken by the weight of these vehicles, they are exempt by that payment for being responsible to repair. Our roads on Redbud, Oak, and many areas in Crown Point are narrow due to either the layout or the parking on the street. This will create traffic problems for our citizens. 7, they will be drilling to place their equipment in the easements in people's yards. I don't know if people are aware of this since they did not go over that in their presentation. 8, the biggest consideration is what happened in the Springtown area. These tests are for a company that, if testing shows gas or oil, will want to come in the area and drill using fracking. This happened in the Springtown area. The chemicals they use for the fracking are a health hazard with long-term and or fatal effects. In Springtown, the chemicals leached into the groundwater, affecting the wells in that area. The homeowners now cannot drink the water or water their animals and have been told not to even use the water for bathing. So they have a house they cannot really live a normal life in and cannot sell the house due to no clean water available, but they still have a big house payment and insurance to pay. No one that I have talked to is in favor for this testing and what it could lead to. Please don't put our city and citizens in this position. The risks are not worth the reward. The city would not make enough money off of this to make it worth the potential risk to our infrastructure, citizens, roads, and our future. Please vote no. Thank you for your time. Deborah Beecraft at 360 West 2nd Street. And next we have Steve Knight.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff. My name is Stephen Knight, and I live at 1313 Prairie Point Drive. I am making this presentation with my own thoughts and not representing any organization or commission I may be a part of. At the previous council meeting, we had a request from Dawson Geophysical Company to allow them to conduct a 3D geophysical survey on behalf of Bedrock Energy within the Rome city limits. Their request was to place equipment on certain properties and easements to better map any underground oil and gas formations for Bedrock Energy. As they presented at the last meeting, this is done by conducting a study using sound waves created by very large and heavy specialized trucks driven on mostly city streets and open fields that create sound waves and use sensors in a predetermined pattern which places these sensors on both private and city-owned properties to receive and better map the oil and gas formations that lay below our city. They are willing to compensate us for this with what I feel is only a token amount. I also understand that these trucks weigh in at around 60,000 pounds and will be fitted with a special flotation type tire which will spread the weight of these trucks so that as to not damage any of our city streets. My limited knowledge obtained during my career in the trucking industry understands this concept, but does not take into consideration the fact that these trucks will be turning corners and these large tires have a huge surface contact area with the asphalt and concrete roads, putting undue stress on the surface and scraping them. This downward pressure is like a grinding wheel. I, as a citizen, don't see any benefit to the city of Rome or its citizens as a result of allowing this mapping to occur. This has nothing to do with utilities within the easements, which do benefit us all. It will only allow Bedrock Energy Group a better map of just what the best ways are to recover whatever is down under the city. When this is done on large tracts of land owned by small numbers of people, this is, I am sure, a useful tool for the energy company and makes much more sense. In closing, I would like to urge the City Council to reject this request and to not take any chances with degrading our infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. What you got, Miss Shana?
And next we have Joanne Wilson.
I'm Joanne Wilson, live at 240 West First here in Rome. A couple of weeks ago, previous council meeting, I addressed the council about the Wise County blog that says Rome politics are a train wreck. Have you even thought about how this could change? What about your oath of office? Do you have the wherewithal to schedule a repeat vote for your actions? I do not want Rome to continue to be the laughing stock of Wise County. You have the ability to change our direction. We could be an outstanding city if we could only get past the one-upmanship that seems to plague our political arena. Do the right thing and revisit and revote and stop the roadblocks. Let Patricia Mitchell do her job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. What you got, Ms. Odom?
We have Ashley Majors.
Mine's short and sweet. Okay, we voted for our mayor. Let her do her job. As for the city administrator, you get paid to work for the citizens and to work for our mayor. Let's move forward. That's it.
Next we have Tommy Eason.
Good evening to all. My name is Tommy Easton and I live at 1107 Mount Lane. The subject I would like to discuss tonight is the fracking that was talked about 2 weeks ago. I have a couple of questions for the city administrator. One, what does the city get out of this if it is voted in favor of? If it is nothing, then why would we even consider the thought of it tearing up our roads and destroying our property? If the city is receiving some kind of reimbursement, what is that going to be? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Eason. Okay, Ms. Odom, anything else?
That's the end of
That's
public
it?
comment.
Okay, very good. Announcements. June the 11th, 2022, Family Park Plant Sale, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's not on here, but Daryl Fitch, is there not a splash days tomorrow as well? Tomorrow. No, 2 days. Saturday, 11 to 3. Okay. Splash Days, 11 to 3 on Saturday, June the 11th. Here at the fire hall? Right here at the fire hall. In front of the school. Very good. June the 18th, 2022, Cone with a Cop at the Dairy Queen, tentatively scheduled from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then June the 23rd, we've got a council meeting. Anybody else have announcements? No announcements? Okay, very good. Consent agenda?
Mayor,
Yes.
you all received at your place corrected minutes for May 18th. So if you're going to keep these on consent agenda and approve them in mass, please approve the corrected May 18th minutes.
I motion to approve these 4 items with the corrections to the May 18th agenda.
Can we hold just 1 second? Let me just stand through it real quick.
The biggest change is putting details in this, the signatory for the banks.
Okay, in what respect did it change?
So we listed each bank account.
I see.
And who-
So that's the substantial difference
Yes,
between the two?
yes.
Okay. All right. Then I'm okay with that. Okay, you got your motion? You got a second?
Second.
And all in favor? This is right here. So that passed unanimously. Monthly staff reports and board minutes.
Mayor, we have the police department who has a presentation on Operation Slowdown.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I just want to take just a couple minutes to update you on Operation Slowdown. If you look at the PowerPoint behind me, this is a partnership with TxDOT, and what we're trying to do is reduce the number of accidents in the city limits of Rome by targeting enforcement in a heat zone, which is on 287. If you'll move forward. Basically, we're trying to reduce crashes, which speed is a factor, because speed is a factor in most of the crashes that are high injury or high death count. Speed, obviously, is the kinetic energy that transmits to the stationary object when you hit. And the greater the speed, the greater the injury, the more deaths you end up having when speed is a factor in a crash. Speed by itself can't cause a crash, but it can influence the outcomes. Your perception and reaction time is greatly diminished the faster you go, and you get caught in what's called an OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, and act. And so we're trying to minimize that. Enforcement dates, it's already started. It's on June 7th through the 21st. The data-driven locations were decided upon by TxDOT and myself, and that's going to be on Highway 287 from Pioneer Parkway to the county road just south of us. So anybody that's listening, make sure you're not driving fast through that area. This isn't a gotcha program. This is a, hey, we're going to be here. We're telling everybody we're going to be here, and we want you to slow down because we want to save lives. As it says on here, there hasn't been a day in Texas that somebody wasn't killed in a crash on a Texas roadway since 2000. That's 22 years of a death on a roadway in Texas every single day for 22 years. So like it says, hashtag in the street Texas, and we hope you'll help us do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything from fire rescue? Daryl Fitch? You got a report for us? Okay. Okay. Any questions? Anybody got questions? Okay. Actually, you're right, everything is in there. Any questions on the department reports from anybody? All right, let's move on to item J, regular agenda, old business discussion, any necessary action regarding Dawson Geophysical Company's request for permission for 3D geographical seismic survey. This is the city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, you all have in your packet the same information that you had last week. We do have a representative here. He was here last week. You asked several questions. You asked for additional information, so that is in your packet as well. So right now it's just up for you guys to decide how you're going to respond. Just as a reminder, the request is for permission to go on to City of Rome property and City of Rome right-of-way. So there's two requests. It does not involve the request, any individual property owner request that they would have for individual property owners. That will be between them and the property owners. So the issue is before you.
Okay. Get some discussion. Did you have some questions, Patrick? Okay.
Sorry about that. No, I know my decision. Well, you know.
Yeah, based on private discussions with citizens as well as what we heard tonight, I'd like to make a motion to deny all requests for this.
I second that motion.
Is there any, before we jump the gun here, is there any other discussion? I mean, I agree with you, Mr. McCabe. But
we do have a
do we have any
motion.
other
We need a
discussion?
second, and then there's discussion. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Atkins?
Well, if you're going to come up and present to the council.
Hello? Okay.
Tell us who you are. What's your
Jeff
name?
C. with Dawson Geophysical Permit Agent, kind of over this project, dealing with landowners, getting surface use agreements. Everything is actually going pretty good. Outside the city limits, we're actually getting some permits approved in city limits. So we're having positive feedback here. So, I mean, it all depends on who you talk to. One thing for utilizing city streets is there's a chance, just texted my superior, sometimes we put up a bond at the request of the city to utilize that bond for if there has to be any damage to the streets, infrastructure, that bond will cover that. Again, we ran 100 square miles in city limits, Arlington, Fort Worth, Grand Prairie with absolutely no problems whatsoever. The lady mentioned about pacemakers. This is an echo wave. There's no electrical waves going out, so that's absolutely not a problem whatsoever. And also the fee that we pay for less than 2 acres. If it's lease held by the client, you really actually don't have to pay anything because the lease minerals trump surface. What we do, that's just to buy you half a pizza on a Saturday night, just say thanks for putting up with us. You just got a jawline somewhere. I know there's quite a few other questions and concerns, but there has been hundreds of square miles urban seismic, absolutely no problems. We'll be in and out of the streets in no time at all. Traffic, I heard that. Yeah, but I've been in Rome during the day. There's not that much traffic where we're going to be going. It's just an inconvenience for just a very short spell. We'll probably be in city limits, probably less than a day with these trucks on certain streets as we move through, so it's not going to be a hold-up factor too long at all. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. C. Any discussion? Yes, ma'am.
So although I probably think that there wouldn't be any damage to the city, I don't want what doors this could possibly open into the future. Like, I mean, I get what they're saying, but I don't want there to be anything beyond that.
We might want to
Exactly.
consider an ordinance later on, like Boyd has. because I looked up what we had in section 4, and it's all about gas wells. So we didn't really have anything that actually regulated it. But I think we still have a motion on the floor. You seconded? No, you seconded. Okay.
I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind, Mayor.
No, please.
You alluded to that surface rights and mineral rights, two different things. So for those of us that you want to be on our property, but we don't
Sir, could you come up to the mic, please?
we don't have mineral rights to that property. And so for those folks that don't have the mineral rights on your property, they have a trump. I'm just going to say that, put it that way.
Absolutely.
So it's important that you know if you own your own mineral rights, because if you own your mineral rights, that is not applicable. You have control over your minerals unless you have leased them to somebody or something like that. So be sure you know your property, know what the implications to your property are, and as if there's any negotiation that they come to you outside of what the city is doing, then you need to know that. You need to educate yourself what your rights are if you do have mineral rights particularly. So that's my warning of the day. The other thing I wanted to ask, so this bond that you mentioned, how much?
Negotiable. What would you think?
Well, how much was the bond, was it that we wanted to pass for our roads? How much was that?
Well, typically we
Was it
video the
5 million
streets.
or something like that?
I want to add to the bond, Elaine. Typically when we'll video the streets prior to, pre, and then post after we're done. We could have an inspector out there also inspecting the road. So if we damage it, the bond will cover damages.
Okay, and so one of the questions that we may or may not know on the city property, do we own the mineral rights? And I don't know the answer.
Elaine, I was going to add to that. No, the minerals have been retained a while back.
And that's usually the practice around here because it's a heavy production. It's got a lot of production already in place. And so chances are the majority of us are not going to. So if the city votes no, then that just puts you in the predicament of having to go door to door and negotiate.
Exactly. But it will limit utilizing the vibrant-sized trucks in the streets. But we will still go to door individually to allow consent to put the receivers, in the yard, typically roadside. So that's an end of one-on-one basis, and we're having pretty good luck.
Okay. Thank you for your.
If I might jump in, just a reminder, a bond is essentially insurance. So they post a bond, and then if the roads are damaged, then we would go make a claim against that bond, and it would be our burden to prove our damages, and we would only recover what we were entitled to repair whatever the damage was. So
what about the expense to make that happen?
That depends on the bond, and I'd have to negotiate it. But yes, it could be covered as part of the bond package. But I would just advise you they're hard to recover on.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we got a motion to deny the permit, and it's seconded, McCabe and Meehan. All in favor?
Aye.
Are you an aye? Okay.
Kathy, I didn't see yours.
Everybody's an aye. Very good. Discussion, necessary action regarding budget amendments.
Mayor, this is budget amendments. We had this on the agenda last council meeting, and you asked for additional information. So you will see in your packet additional information. I'm happy to answer any questions on that. Additionally, there was a page that was left out from TML IRP. And so please look at your place for that place. This is the $10,000 that required this budget amendment. Are there any questions on that?
Yeah, I'm going to. I know I looked through this. Was that in the supplemental or was it in the first one you sent out?
The supplemental. Well, while you're looking, just as a reminder, none of these budget amendments raise the bottom line of the budget. So these are people looking at their budgets and moving from one line item to the other. And a budget, as a reminder, and we're going to be talking about that tonight, basically is a projection. So you're looking at historical data and how you've spent money, and you're looking forward and anticipating future costs. So this was an unexpected expense. We're still able to cover it within the budget, so it's not raising that bottom line. And again, it was due to an audit done by TML, essentially, on our property and liability payments that we make on an annual basis. You will see there we make, essentially, we pay about $63,997 a year for property and liability for all departments. And on a quarterly basis, we pay $15,999. They did an audit, and that is what precipitated this. There was an officer-involved shooting, and there was shift work added to fire, and that is why you see an additional $10,000 that we are paying on this.
So none of these were emergency, a budget amendment for an emergency, is that correct?
Well, this, again, it didn't raise the bottom line.
Okay. Well, I'm just concerned that when something is allocated, you've got so much money and you've allocated it here. And I understand that you're just taking it from one pot, putting into another. It does concern me that, we have overages to that degree that we have to take it from somewhere else to cover it. But anyway, you guys want to approve it? Do we hear a motion to approve the amendments? That is on the insurance property. Was that the audit?
Right, that's the audit
the
on
TML
the
audit, just on the
property and
insurance.
liability.
The contract labor, was that a result of the CPA? Was that the CPA that was hired?
The contract labor was as a result of the city secretary transition. And
Okay,
so that
I
was
understand
a
that, but
holistic
was that paid
picture.
to the CPA?
Part of it,
Okay,
part of it.
how much?
Well, you got it there before you.
I got it. It just says contract labor.
No, you've got a whole page in there. Go forward. Right there.
All right.
This is the 10,000 for the TML. This is something we legally had to do, correct? for the officer involved shooting. So really, there is no way of getting out of it, right?
Right. And it was
Okay.
unexpected.
Unexpected. So it's not like this just popped up because we felt like moving some money to have extra stuff. I make a motion to approve the amendment.
I'll second.
So we've got a motion and a second. All in favor? Your eyes, I didn't hear you, Kathy and Patrick. All aye? Okay. Regular agenda, new business, discussion, any necessary action regarding Rolling V Ranch Police Fire Agreement, and this is also City Administrator.
So Mayor, this is an agreement that staff has been working on with Rolling V. It is a sub-agreement of the developers agreement where essentially the city has, for lack of a better term, although Carver may not like it, first right of refusal for providing police and fire services in that development in Rolling V Ranch. So staff has been working with them, and you have the agreement before you. Just in short, what it allows for is a full-time police officer and a car, and obviously the things that go with it, the ancillary items, which would be uniforms, mobile units for the cars, computers, that sort of thing. It provides for a full-time firefighter, and it provides for $100,000 to the fire department for equipment, and so the fire chief is looking at grants that are available for vehicles, large equipment items. So he has been working on that, and that's essentially it. It sets out the terms, it sets out the expectations for them. It also pays for workman's comp. There's a couple of other items that it pays for, and opportunities for if there's extra work that has to be done that is associated with other duties of police officer, criminal investigation, crime scene services. Those would be additional services that would be charged for. And the term you will see on the page 2, it begins July 1st and goes.
Just 1 second. You know, when I got L, and that's what this item is, it takes me to the next page I've got up is Administration and Finance. And then the next page after that is the 3D. So I don't know if, does anybody else experiencing?
We'll go after
difference?
that was K, that was on your right hand.
Okay.
Do you all see the Rolling V Ranch agreement in your packets?
Okay. Do you have it, Patrick? Yeah. It's in the back. Okay.
So Cynthia, I have a question for you. Reading through this, and maybe this is something the chiefs would have to answer, but these are going to be full-time Rhome Fire and Police Department, but they're specifically focused on that Rolling V area, correct?
Correct. And
Okay.
it's very clear that they remain City of Rome employees, and they provide service to that area.
Okay.
But they remain under our supervision.
So, and it might be different per department, but if another call is made, would they be able to go on that other call if it takes them out of the Rolling V area?
Yes, there are
Okay.
provisions for that, being they understand that, I mean, if there's, and it does speak to that, and I'd have to look that up, but it does specifically speak to that in the agreement.
Okay. So there's really no downside because they're paying for everything and we're just getting extra protection for the city?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question. I just wanted to add a question about what you're already talking about. So I have to assume that this full-time person, whether it's fire or police, they go about their duties, but it's not necessarily going to be Officer A that provides this service. It could be any officer as long as those hours are met. Is that possible?
No, there is a dedicated police officer and firefighter. Now, that doesn't, I mean, if they're on vacation, if they, there needs to be some adjustments to that. There's provision for that, but the idea is that, there is one officer. Again, there's room for it and it provides for it. You can come on up if you want, but it provides for that.
I think there's a page on it that it say Solitaire is the sole officer for Rolling B. That says until Rolling B has an issue with him, they can bring it to the police department and request a change. But it's just going to be
It's in section 10, right. And it reads, the district understands and agrees that the assigned peace officer on duty may be utilized in another area of the city in case of an emergency or a disaster. The city will make every reasonable effort to minimize any use of peace officer outside the district.
You'll notice the extra language in there is basically directed at a police officer. Fire department doesn't work as an individual. So the individual is included in the crew. So there's not a specific firefighter that would be dedicated to Rolling V because we don't work individually. We work as a crew. So the language is a little bit different for PD, and Chief Divas can explain to you on that. But to answer your questions appropriately, in that packet, it's not saying fire and police have one person. Chief can speak on his. Mine is it's going towards the department, and then that will be the crew. We're going to keep, nothing changes for the fire department. We'll make the calls. If we have multiple calls, we still make multiple calls. Basically on the fire side, it's just that we will be responding with the appropriate apparatus and the people to take care of mitigate an emergency, if that makes sense. So there is a little bit of difference. And that's why you don't see as much verbiage in the fire side as you do the police side.
But I believe on the fire side, it does say full-time, full shift. Full paid shift. So how would y'all determine?
At this time, we're looking, since it would be one paid firefighter, we're looking at an 8 to 4 shift. So it'd be Monday through Friday. That's the goal at this moment.
And it would just be a rotation between whoever's available?
No, we would actually hire a firefighter.
Okay.
So, and we're looking at this point of moving up from within because that is our forte. And that's what these guys have been under that system for years. But our goal would be 8 to 4 because with one person, you can't do a 24/7 and have the shifts covered properly. But if we can do our main coverage during the business day, like the stipend allows us to do, and then keeping the stipend in our budget that the city takes care of, then we're adding more people to a daily schedule that allows us to do better coverage. And which our main forte is, y'all saw in the budget workshop, our main forte is between about 8 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock at night.
So they're paying for one police car too, right? Any chance they can throw in a fire engine at that?
That's what the $100,000 was for.
Towards that?
My initial ask was $342,000 because that would have been the attack vehicle that would take care of that type of terrain. You would need a wildland brush truck. You would need to merge that with an EMS vehicle, and you need to merge that with extrication because the extra traffic. They settled on the $100,000. So then what we can do is we can look at that. We've got some grants, the possibility of coming in that we can assist with that vehicle, or we can take that $100,000 and put it to a vehicle we have to upgrade it to the capabilities that we need to take care of the infrastructure that's based off of Rolling V.
Okay.
Does that help? All right, I'll let Chief Divas come up.
I'm here for any questions.
They made it simple for y'all.
So. This is really easy.
I mean, this is a win-win for the city of Rome. If you remember in their budget request, both departments wanted an additional personnel. And so while this is, and Chief, you're exactly right. I mean, in the PD sense, it is dedicated. Fire is a little bit different, but still it allows the whole department to have an extra person, which will help in emergencies.
And to that point, that is written into the contract that if the Rhome officer calls for assistance, the one dedicated to the Rolling V area would leave there and go help him and back him up or her up, which as the chief makes me sleep a lot better at night knowing that I've got two on duty instead of one. And this would provide an officer from 6P to 6A 7 out of 14 days.
And then I'm not sure on the PD side, but on the fire side, that did include overtime for the fire side. Because it's hard to tell somebody at 4 o'clock if he's on a fire that he needs to go home. So that did include, and we padded it with extra gear, the whole 9 yards. We did a lot of research and homework on this because, you know, if we've got this growth coming, and as department staff, we have to look at, you know, how can we best utilize that development coming in, even though it's not in the city limits, how can we assist the city with what they have to offer? You know, we shot high. Like I said, I shot 332,000. We saw where that went, but hey, got $100,000 out of it. So there was a lot of thought. The one thing we are still working on, and you'll look on if you read the agreement, there was some a little bit of frustration. We kind of wanted a sustainability where we had a percentage, or what was the exact word?
Multiplier.
A multiplier over the years. But I think in the package, it's pretty much coming back to is it's something that can be discussed on a yearly basis.
We have the right to revisit, and especially as Rolling V is growing. Right now, they're projecting 500 homes a year, so it would be hard to build that into this contract. It's probably in our favor that we can revisit it and base it on the actual population that's actually occurred.
Let's clarify. It doesn't cost our taxpayers anything. It'll all come out of Rolling V.
That is correct. Matter of fact, if you noticed in the fire department comprehensive plan and stuff, this year would have been the year the city was going to have to look at paying a firefighter to start beefing up our coverage. So basically, that comprehensive plan that we thought the city was going to have to do now has gone over to Rolling V, and we're working with the developers to take care of some of that comprehensive plan.
Very good.
I think it's pretty simple then. I'd motion to approve the agreement.
Any other discussion though? Anybody have any questions? Jumping the gun on me, Mr. McCoy.
I'll second, and then we can discuss.
Okay, sorry.
Kathy second. She didn't have her mic on.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second. Is it going to go with Ty or is it going to go with Kathy? All right, all in favor? Oh, no.
Aye.
So much for discussion.
We can discuss after we make a motion and a second, correct? Yes.
But not after you vote. Correct? Okay. Oh. Discussion and necessary action regarding an amendment to the OpenGov contract, and this is also city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and council members, you have in your packet background information on the amendment to the contract. And essentially what this was OpenGov was, we entered into an agreement with OpenGov for a cloud-based program. As a reminder, we entered into a contract with STW back in 2019. It is an on-prem system. OpenGov bought out STW in 2020, and they are a cloud-based program. So essentially, they bought this program, this system out, and they were planning on migrating everybody to a cloud-based program. So that happened. We were notified, I believe, sometime in 2021 that they were going to be not servicing STW on-prem system any longer. And at the same time, ARPA funds became available. And so, as you remember, the council made the decision to go with OpenGov because not only did it give us the ability to go to consolidated cache, which is what staff has been asking for a long time, it also gave us the ability to have a much more robust program. It was more expensive, so the initial cost, implementation cost was $92,500, and as a comparison, I believe when we bought STW, it was around $80,000. And STW, they do increase their annual subscription fee every year, and this is common with tech companies. But STW was being increased about 5% per year, so that annual subscription fee was around $17,000. With the new OpenGov system, it was going to be $45,000. Again, it was much more robust. Now, what happened is, I think that they got a little bit ambitious with their plans, and they were having technical issues onboarding their clients. They had some early adopters, other than we were not early adopters. We came in right after that early adopter phase, and they were having some challenges switching them over. And so to avoid any problems, and it wasn't just us, it was other customers. So to avoid any problems, they offered to refund our money and keep us on STW and service STW, because remember, they said they weren't going to service it anymore, so service STW for the until they can get these kinks worked out. And so what you have in the background information before you is we paid $130,000 for the program, for the cloud-based program with OpenGov. They are going to refund $52,000 and some change, and they're going to refund almost $20,000, but that will be applied as credit to the future annual payments. And you see that payment schedule there in your background information. This is 2022 through 2025 at $48.47 per year. The consolidated cash, to go to consolidated cash, costs about $40,468. And then you see the $18,847, that will go for the annual subscription this year. And you see that it equals the $130,737. I think there may be somebody online that is with OpenGov. Matthew, are you online?
Yes, ma'am, I am. Can y'all hear me okay?
Okay, maybe he's not. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those questions.
Cynthia, can y'all hear me okay?
Matthew, are you online?
Cynthia, can y'all hear me?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Are you? Okay, well, while we're thinking if he's online or not, are there any questions?
Okay, I got questions. 92.5 plus 45,000. That's what you've come up with, $130,737.50.
Well, if you see the note there, Mayor, it's 6762. That was a credit that was given for overlapping.
All right. So, but they're only going to give us a refund of $52,000.
Well, essentially, it's about 70,000.
Okay. So that's still about $50,000 unaccounted for. It was 70,000, 130 plus about 60,000.
Well, 70,000, the 40,000 for consolidated cash, and the 18,847 for the annual subscription this year.
What happened with OpenGov? Did anything get to the cloud-based service?
No.
Nothing got to the cloud. Okay, what happened with OpenGov? Just that they couldn't fulfill their agreement?
Like I said, they were having some, okay, he says he's online, but can you see? Can you hear me, Matthew? You texted me saying you were online. Okay, I'm seeing if he can call me and I can put the phone up to the mic. So what happened is, again, I'm not a technical person and I'm not the, okay, there he is. Matthew?
Cynthia, can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. So the mayor has asked a question. I have explained that there was some technical challenges in the lift and shift with your clients going from an on-prem to the cloud-based, and the mayor is asking for details on that.
Yes, ma'am. So what we discovered was there was some challenges with how the COAs were being constructed, which is your general ledger. And
what's a COA?
Some of the reporting.
Excuse me, what's a COA?
Go ahead. She's asking what the COA is.
Oh, I'm sorry, your chart of accounts or your general ledger.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the difference there was causing some reporting issues along with some other functionalities that were associated with utility billing and other features within the product. And so what we wanted to do to minimize that risk across our customer base was to pull back, slow down, work through that renumbering issue, and then once we have all the kinks worked out, then move forward with that group that was the non-early adopters. So we had the early adopters where we were discovering this, and then Rhome was part of that first group that was outside of that early adopter. And so we wanted to mitigate that, and we pulled back, allowing them to stay on premise longer, obviously at that rate that she presented to y'all.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
So this whole change was no fault of Rhome, correct? This is all OpenGov that had the issues.
So how do we know that
correct.
the consolidated cache is going to be any more reliable? Is consolidated cache a subsidiary with OpenGov?
Going to consolidated cache is just a type of accounting. It's not a program.
Okay.
But it requires to redo the chart of accounts. So it's just tedious work that has to be done on the back end. When you're talking about all the inputs, I mean, all the different, I mean, there's journal entries that happen, and they're automated journal entries. So it's just the back end of all the accounting stuff that's got to be programmed.
Okay. But where are we buying this from then? Is it still OpenGov? If the OpenGov is not going to follow through on what they said they would do, so are we signing another consolidated cache through OpenGov as well?
Yes, this is an amendment to the contract. Consolidated cache, again, is not a program. It is how you do the accounting. This is what is going to allow us to, we had 27 bank accounts. We closed some of them down. We still have 17 bank accounts, which creates a lot of manual work, and it increases the chance for errors. And this is normally, governments go to consolidated cash. It's pooled cash. It's an account. It's how you account for everything. It's not a program.
So how long for the implementation to do this?
About 12 weeks.
It just seems like we're started out was 92,000, and then basically we're getting a $52,000 refund to go towards something else.
No, the 52,000, it's 70,000. 52,000 we will have, and I would ask that we would hold that in reserve to go back to the
So
cloud.
they are literally giving us $52,000 back.
Yes, and then the $20,000, that will be applied as a credit to the annual subscription. So you will see, instead of 18, 19, 20, 25, as it goes up 5% each year, you've got that schedule of payments at 14,000, 15,000, 16,000, 18,000.
So with this contract, we're still contracted with them. So they're doing this because they want to help us out. They could still hold us liable to the full contract and make us wait until everything is implemented and not give us anything back.
Well, I wouldn't say that, because, I mean, they're not delivering. Matthew, you might want to respond to that, but, they're not delivering on, what they said, without some, heartaches. And, the daily operations are stressed at City Hall. We are short-staffed, and there's a lot of work that goes on, and so we don't need to be living through that headache. And so they, as being a good neighbor or a good business partner, they want to make sure that we're satisfied.
Correct. Yes, everything that Cynthia said. Obviously, we want to maintain a partnership, which is why obviously we extended our end of life of our on-premise to help support our customers that are needing a little extra time in a transition, as well as ourselves as we work through that migration process. So it's actually a dual partnership for both sides, and so it's basically taking that step back and allowing everyone to kind of catch their breath on both sides to continue that partnership moving forward long term.
This is the software that we've had, STW. How long have we had STW?
2019.
2019. So we've had this software. We're just extending it because they can't do the cloud thing right now.
Right.
Okay.
Remember, STW, STW was a company that OpenGov bought out. I keep using the term STW, but essentially it's an on-premise system. So it's not cloud-based, which is much more heavy. I mean, it's just hard to manage, and that's why everybody's going to the cloud, because it provides convenience, it provides graphic-rich, information. It's like comparing a DOS to a Windows.
And originally they weren't going to maintain the STW, correct? Because they were going to the cloud, but then they made a change and now they are going to service STW with whoever has it.
Right. I mean, I'm sure as a business, I won't, Matthew, you can respond to that, but tech companies, are evolving all the time because technology is changing very rapidly. So you do see a lot of changes in tech companies as things evolve. They made a business decision to buy out this company, and I'm sure there are reasons to do so, but they believed that they could give them a better product by going to the cloud. They were having technical issues, and so now they're wanting to say, okay, and they're they're, admitting it, and they're saying, hey, we want to make sure this is a smooth transition. We've had some problems with the early adopters. We want to make sure that everybody has a good transition. Eventually, yes, they want to get off the on-prem, I will say, system and get everybody to the cloud-based system. Matthew, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I was just going to say you are correct in that even most of our competitors are all sunsetting legacy on-premise versions of their own software and moving them to a cloud version. So this isn't just an issue with us. I actually worked for one of our competitors, and some of the same headaches that they had with migrating from one version to another, it's very common in the technical world to kind of work through these bugs. We just got a little ambitious with that second wave, and so we want to pull back and once again maintain that partnership and that relationship with y'all, and that's why we're offering, obviously the money back for the services, and then the software licensing over the 4 years, reducing that. So once again, it's just maintaining that partnership so that we can continue to, at some point in the future, move y'all to the cloud at that point.
And I will just interject. I mean, I looked at a few other systems. There's cheaper systems that are just not as robust and do not do everything that even STW on-prem does. Number one. Number two, there is another company out there, and I've talked to you guys about this. It's called Tyler Technologies, Encode, but it is much more expensive than OpenGov. And not only that, but they have, and I don't know if that's who you worked for, Matthew, or not, but I have worked with them in another city, and I do like the program, I will say that. But they have all these different modules, okay, whether it's code, permitting, the financials, the budget, payroll, utility billing. Those are all different modules. A lot of times what cities do is they grow, they get, one or two of the modules that they can afford, but they see the benefit, and so they try to onboard other modules. Well, by this time, it's like your Apple iPhone. Who has a 5 anymore, or a 7 even? When a city onboards a different version of that software, there are still problems integrating even within the same company. It's just the nature of the tech world. It's one of those things it's a love-hate relationship with computers.
Did this change in the contract, did this go through legal review also?
Yes, sir.
Very good.
I think this is in the best interest of both parties, so I motion to approve the amendment and earmark any refunds and future credits not used to go towards future fees.
And authorize the city administrator to execute it.
That's right, yes.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Kathy, you and I? Okay. Discussion and any necessary action regarding.
Thank you, Matthew.
Discussion and any necessary action regarding community development block grant, including grant administrative services contract and accompanying resolutions. And this is city administrator.
So, Mayor and Council, you have a lot of documents. Just as a reminder, we do have, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves here in a minute. We do have representatives from GrantWorks, who is our grant administrator on this community development block grant that we have through the Texas Department of Agriculture. So we went out for this when the former mayor was here and got this grant, and it was awarded earlier this year, and now we are going through the startup documents. So it includes the grant administration contract that you have in your packet. And anytime, and I'm just going to say this simply, but it's more detailed than this, but anytime you do business with the state or federal government, there's always strings attached. So that's what all of these documents are. These are resolutions that we need to pass. Now, I will say a lot of these we already do. but this just makes it clear for this grant, this is how we're going to conduct ourselves, whether it's a use of force policy, financial management. I mean, you've got them all in there. I was going to read through some of them, but resolution regarding civil rights, citizen participation plan, it goes into all of those details. So what this is for is essentially this project, it's about $350,000 that will bring Well 6 back online. If you remember several years ago, I want to say it was 2018 that radon was found in Well 6, and so it was shut down. And so what this project will do is bring it up back online. If you remember, we have really been managing how we use our water sources, and whether it's well water or surface water. Surface water from Walnut Creek is very expensive. Well water obviously isn't as expensive. So we have been making a shift to try to use more of our well water. Bringing this back online will help in that continued vein, which will help save money. Now, we do have two folks here that Lenore was very helpful. If you want to come up and introduce yourself, and in helping us get the grant. And is it on?
I think it is now.
Okay.
Okay.
If you just want to introduce, she was very helpful in getting, working with us to get the grant, and I'll let you tell more about the startup documents and what they are.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Lenore Hellman. I'm an app writer for GrantWorks, and this is the Director of Application Services, and this is Shauna. I wrote the application, and that was over a year now. It's been a while, and this is the first time coming here in person. It's great. I'm glad to be here because COVID was quite a problem last year, but the document's going through tonight, and Viviana, your project manager, is on, but she called in, so she can't talk. But so we've got several things here. I know some of them seem redundant, but as Cynthia said, there's a lot of strings attached with state funding, and that's mostly just because they report to HUD, which is a federal grant or federal agency, and they have to follow a lot of policies, right? So some of these, the first one that you might see is the resolution authorizing signatories. This is specifically for this contract. The contract is listed in line 4 CDB 21-0018. They have to do this every time you get a grant. And it's different than the resolution you submit for the first one, which is an application submission. So it's slightly different, and it's just going through TDA stuff. And there's a bunch of other resolutions regarding civil rights, excessive force, and then, discrimination. Are there any questions on those, or do you want me to go through them?
It seems like at the time that it was all virtual, but it seems like at the time this was about the amount that was proposed when they agreed, when they approved it, at 350,000.
Yeah.
And then, we had to do an engineer, and then it was already, this was up front.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and that shouldn't have changed since then. What gets submitted to TDA at application time usually remains throughout contract.
So yes, we already have we did the RFP process, onboarding an engineer for this project, and that is Kimley Horn. They're already ready to go, and the design will be a couple of months. And I think we'll have it done before the deadline, but the deadline to have it complete.
It's 2 years from contract date, so it'll be February 28th, I suppose, of 2024. Is that my math correct? 24?
Have we actually gotten the money yet?
Yes, we have, but we haven't. Yes and no. So they have awarded it, and you can probably talk to it, but basically the way that this grant works is TDA holds on to it.
Yes.
So do you want to?
Yeah, so we submit draw logs every time that there's a certain amount of work done, and it's usually quarterly, correct me if I'm wrong, quarterly And that's a reimbursement process. So you then submit that to TDA and they reimburse you for those.
That's processed through you guys also.
Yes.
Very good.
Vivian is who the project manager is.
Anybody else have a question?
So really, this is just the next step in the process of what we've already been doing?
Yeah, I mean, moving it down the road, I mean, getting the project started, so this will be good.
I make a motion to approve the grant. What exactly do you need? I don't know how to word that.
Oh.
To execute and approve required associated resolutions.
Okay, yeah.
Ask you a question on the resolution 05, authorizations.
Your. Oh,
It
I thought it
was?
was.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh. So I think we got it resolved.
Never mind.
There's multiple resolutions.
I think we got it resolved. So the, basically what we're looking for is approval for, the grant administrative, service contract authorizing the city administrator to execute and approve the required, associated resolutions.
Correct.
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Buddy and I.
I'm sorry, who seconded it?
Priest?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. It's nice to meet
Thank
you all.
you. It's good to meet you. Appreciate you coming out.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you for your time. Okay, regular agenda, new business. Discussion and any necessary action regarding council priorities for fiscal year 2022, 2023 budget. And this is the city administrator.
Trying to get this pulled up. Just a moment. Okay. So this is a review from the Vision Budget Workshop. If you remember, we had that on April 21st, I believe. And we went through quite a few things. I'm going to just touch on those, and I have sent all the new, the mayor, council members, Meehan and Kaniski, the PowerPoint from that Vision Budget Workshop. So this is just a review of that, but I want to highlight on some of the departmental requests, because right now what we're trying to get from council is an idea of what the priorities are. So, I mean, essentially, we just reviewed our vision because remember, the budget is always tied to the comprehensive development plan. And the department heads are well aware of that, and they're looking at their the comprehensive development plan and their own annual plans that they have shared with you on how they are prioritizing their different requests for the budget. During the vision workshop, you did come up with core values, and they were pretty much just extrapolated out of that vision statement. And those core values are cost effective, integrity, quality, service, transparent, respectful, and compassionate. So again, we always look at what we've done, what the accomplishments have been over the past year, what remains to be done, and how we reprioritized given any other issues that came up during the year. So some of the things at city administration was increased communication, increased efficiencies and streamlining services through these different strategies, economic development. A lot of work has been done on updating the code of ordinances and zoning ordinances. And here you can see These are basically the number of ordinances that have been passed per year. And so the last couple of years have been pretty steady, and we're at 14 already this year. The Rhome Police Department, they've done quite a bit of work. They've inventoried the evidence room, auctioned 11 vehicles. They added additional body cameras and a DVD burner. They replaced aging radio equipment, and that was through the last budget. And those are some of the things. Began hiring new officers and standardizing uniforms and equipment. So, Rhome Fire Rescue, these are the number of man hours they worked in 2021, so you can see that's sizable, 17,000 plus. Education initiative with the CPR, a 28% increase in emergency calls in 2021, the completion of the ISO, radios through the ARPA funding, and re-implementing the boot drive after COVID. On the water, public works, water system improvements, the East Wastewater Treatment Plant upgrades are completed. We're finalizing that project, and we'll be bringing that back to you guys to complete through the acceptance of that project shortly. Water system improvements, increasing, as I indicated, increasing the well production and decreased purchase of Walnut Creek. And there are several others there. Here's well 6, the improvements in bringing well number 6 back online. The water source water rate study, again, identification of the future water sources and implementation of the wastewater increase. And on the street side, funding contract road repairs with 50,000 to be scheduled. Some of that has already taken place in Crown Point and on Morris at 287. Partnered with Wise County for Biowell Road improvements and the thoroughfare master plan. And on the park side, the master parks plan was completed, and there's park land available for the park system expansion. Municipal court, I think the biggest thing, I mean, there are several things. I mean, a backlog of cases are current or disposed. Records management has been a huge emphasis for all departments, City Hall included. But I think the biggest one here is Texas Warrant Roundup. We did the first Texas Warrant Roundup that Rhome has done, and the municipal court did a great job, and that was a great program. So now we're getting to the priorities. So here's where you want to start taking notes. Priorities, city administration, salaries. I talked about this last year, and you know, council has been consistent, and staff appreciates that, with 4% increases, which is 2% for COLA and 2% merit increases. What you see on this chart, and I know it's pretty small, but it is in your packets, but what you see on this chart is essentially 100% of Rhome employees are paid at or below 60% of the market average. So that means this is through a TML survey, a salary survey, and that means that 60% we're all paid below 60%. Now we made some improvements last year, because last year it was, most of them were below 50%. So, you know, there was some improvements in that, and we did some small equity adjustments last year. I'm not recommending those this year, only because, you know, I think the budget will be tight. And then the other thing, and I've been talking about this for a couple of years, and that is hire a building inspector slash code compliance officer. We've kind of been cobbling along, and it wasn't a bad approach, but right now we only dedicate 10 hours to code, and that has been a priority. It's a priority in the comprehensive development plan to essentially clean up and beautify Rome. And that cost is approximately 85, and that includes benefits. When you look at some of the some of that cost will be offset by the revenue that we get from permits. So we try to account for staff time in processing these permits. We account for engineering fees and attorney fees. So you can see in 2020, the permit revenue was approximately 101,000, and the expense was 33. So the delta between that is about 70,000. That could help. Now that helps pay for the engineer and if there's attorneys, involved, but there's some delta there that could help fund that full-time employee. So this would be the benefits. I mean, basically increased attention to building and code, not just code, but even building. There's a lot of things. I mean, our third-party building inspector does a good job, but we are not the only person that he works for. So he works for other cities. If we want to really get more dedicated service in Rome and catch things, I mean, we have, employees that they're very dedicated, and so they're driving to work and they might see something. And I mean, that might be PD officer, fire, permit, myself. I mean, anybody. We're always looking. So we see those things. We are proactive, but having a full-time person would be much more proactive. So you see that.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
So do you anticipate with the new houses being built, I know that they're going to turn Blue Stem over to the builders this month sometimes, at least that was what they put in the paper. Is that going to increase then our demand for those permits? Is that going to generate more income?
Well, no. So remember, the developer's agreement provides for how we're going to handle inspection services, and I'm going to bring that information back to you in the form of an agreement. But if we were going to do all the inspections for Rolling V, we would have to hire probably 5 people, not just one. One couldn't handle that workload at all. So, the developer's agreement provided a couple of options. The option I'm going to be back to you guys is hiring a third-party inspector. Now, what they would do, how we are in that mix, because at some point, when it makes economic sense, which will be far into the future, as far as annexing. We have the right to annex Rolling V. So they could eventually become City of Rome citizens inside the city limits. However, we would want it to make economic sense. But what it does is that third-party inspector, we're proposing that they would use our software. So we will have that record of all of that. And they'll use our software. So for each permit that is issued, we would get $100 per permit. But they will do the work. And again, there's no way one person, it literally will take, 4 to 6, I would venture to say, because those are going to be coming in hot and heavy. When they start building, they're just going to be blowing and going. So we could not handle that.
Mr. Atkins said earlier, it may be 30 years before we actually annex.
Yeah, could be. Absolutely. Oh, wait. So this is not an economic, well, it is, but at this point, I don't know exactly what that is. But animal control is a big one. So I think one way that we can address that is by creating and implementing a catch and release program, which would be managing the feral cat population. And potentially, we have explored a little bit a partnership with a nearby animal shelter. However, that didn't pan out, so we're still looking. We right now partner with Wise County, and essentially they pretty much, when it comes to the cat population, they pretty much treat all cats as feral cats, so they do not pick them up. And on the actually, I think they had a problem at their shelter, so they're not. Was it a fire or something that happened up at their shelter? So right now,
Up at Wise County.
yeah, that's what it was. So they're not taking dogs right now either. But anyway, so that's one of the things we're looking at, and then also looking at again, this is not a cost, but a financial transparency through the comptroller's office, which is the STAR program. And so we are working on that, and essentially it is posting additional information about our finances online. So we are working on that. Water, wastewater investment, there's not, this year, I will tell you, there's not a specific request from water, wastewater, only because last year you guys addressed that with a revenue bond and with a short-term loan for some equipment needs, which we've already done. So we're still working through that, and there's some issues there that I'll be bringing back to you guys. So again, I mean, but you can see the lack of investment. We have aging infrastructure, so when it comes to water, wastewater facilities, they're extremely expensive. Right now, our water, wastewater master plans, our long term is like $26 million that we have to come up with for some of these long-term CIP projects. And in the short term, the cost keeps going up and up and up. And so even though you guys approved around $6 million for a revenue bond, the cost is going up. And so we are looking at bringing back a phased-in approach on even that. But we do have to move forward on that. But you can see, I mean, this is, I think, in 1991, there was I believe that was 300, I can't read it from here. This was in 2000, 2.9, and then this is the East Wastewater Treatment Plant. I think that's 2.8, excuse me. The East Wastewater Treatment Plant was 2.6. And just, I will let you know that there is a delta in that, as you guys know, and we've been talking about. So the delta, because the bid came in lower than the bond amount, and we're going to have extra money to the tune of 300 to 400,000, and we'll have that exact figure for you to replace clay pipes leading into the East Wastewater Treatment Plant. And then this is the $6 million for the revenue bond. The police department, their priorities, I mean, you've already approved the cars, and that's a lease purchase program over the next 5 years, and that's $50,000 per year. So you've already committed to that. They're asking for building improvements, and they were asking for additional personnel. Again, we were able to make a little bit of a dent in it this year through that agreement with Rolling V. These are the details of the building improvements that they would like. And again, it's about a $30,000 price tag there. these are the priorities for fire EMS. So I'm going to say, you know, probably one of their number one was the full-time firefighter, which again, we got through the Rolling V Ranch PD fire agreement. These are the remaining inside personal lockers at 10,000, bunker gear at 24,000, and radio upgrades at 15,000 is what they would like. Municipal court needs a scanner for digitizing court cases, and that's a $1,500 annual fee. And at some point, you know, when they go back in person, they're looking at some AV equipment that's not just recordable but transcribable as well. The Parks and Recreation Capital project, essentially, the request is 48,000, but remember that they have reserves of approximately 30,000 right now. So they are proposing to use those reserves with an additional request of 18,000, and that would replace the existing small playground unit and swing set and relocate the 2 units closer to the large play unit. So it's a replacement and relocation project is what that is. Now, if we don't have enough, we would be able to do part of this for that 30,000. Now we're kind of getting into the bond debt discussion. As you all know, the way I've divided this out, blue is water, wastewater. That's an enterprise fund. Those are paid through by the revenue that we get from our customers. On the red side, the general fund, that is coming from general fund. Those are 2 distinct funds that we have. So right now, the bonds that we have 2016, which is the refunding bond, and that those payments in 2023, they will be 201,598. In 2024, it'll be 203,868. Can't read that far. Lower, and 2025 will be the last payment at 200,958. Remember, we've said the 2016 rolls off at 25, and the 2017 tax note rolls off in 24. So in what's important to see is that we will continue bond payments of 201,000 and 117,000 on the general fund side for the bond debt. On the water side, 23, this was a 2019 bond, so it goes for, I believe it was a 30-year, I'll have to look at my notes on that. So the payments in 2023 will be 168,776. And this, on the water, wastewater, it doesn't impact the general fund side. Okay, we've also been talking about, well, this is more on the bond, so what it was for. And you can see the 2017, I mean, it was various items, the AMR, which is the Badger system, automatic reading for our water, wastewater, municipal complex design, outdoor warning sirens, the old school building, relocation of City Hall, are some of the major expenses that were funded by the 2017 tax note. 2016, the GO bond, essentially it was refunded in 2007, and to save money. Remember, anytime you're refunding, if that interest rate goes down and it makes sense, you want to refund to save money. So essentially that was refunding a 1991 GO bond for 362 for water improvements, and then a 2000 CO that was that 2.8 million for water, wastewater improvements. Right now, this is principal and interest outstanding for bond debt. The principal is 3568, and the with the interest, the total is 4968, 4,968,352. So the bond debt discussion, this is where we're at with that. Some of this in the history, I'm going to let you guys read in your packet. We've talked about it quite a bit, but I would encourage you to look at that because it really gives you a sense of the urgency of really improving our wastewater system. And we've also talked about presented a conceptual facility scenario in a phased approach in that workshop, and this just kind of spells out the details. So I'm just going to kind of highlight it. Basically, the caveats are, we've got a volatile economy with soaring inflation and building costs. This is conceptual. Staff got together, and again, this is just a concept for you guys, a phased approach. I mean, listening to the citizens based on yearly economic conditions and projected debt capacity. Remember, we've got two major debts rolling off in 24 and 25. Projected estimates are based on an industry average of 325 per square foot, and that's pretty standard. And honestly, today it could be even higher than that. I think it's important. Staff has, just wanted you to know that remaining in place instead of a lot of little movements is important for staff, because every time staff has to move, that means they're spending precious limited staff resources on moving versus doing the work that they need to do, that they're short-staffed anyway. So these next charts basically are just kind of, these are from the Federal Reserve Bank in Dallas, and it's just economic forecast is really what I'm trying to show you there. It's just a inflationary scenario is what we've got, and volatile supply chain prices, and it goes on. So this last sheet is a summary of departmental priorities. So what I want you to see here, notice a few things. All of them is $291,000. Probably not going to be able to do that. And I'll show you the preliminary numbers here in a minute, but so you're going to have to prioritize. I guess the good news is that on some of these priorities, I do think it's a win-win that we had the agreement with Rolling V, because that took care of a couple. Keep in mind, you've already approved $50,000 for the annual lease purchase, and we had to do that early because of the supply chain crisis. And if we wouldn't have put in that order, by the end of May, which has been done, those cars would not have been delivered till probably 2024. So basically, you got employee salaries. So the total of that is approximately right now, estimating about, I'm saying 57 something. So I'm going to say 60,000. A full-time building inspector / code is 85. Police department, the cars are already approved at 50,000. Building improvements at 30,000. Again, full fire department and police department full-time is already approved. Fire department has the 10,000 for the lockers, bunker gear at 24,000, and radios at 15. Municipal court has 1,500 annually for the digitizing court cases, and then parks and recreation is 18 is the bottom line for that. So, and that all adds up to 291. So we'll know more once we get final, certified values in. But now it's really, we need to hear, as I go back and work on the budget and work with staff, we need to hear what some of your thoughts are and what your priorities are.
So what is the kind of the roundabout price that we have to work with?
We do not know that yet. that's why you have to prioritize A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then, we just fit it in as I find out. I mean, I will say the values, and so let me show you. Well, actually, did I bring that slide? Oh my gosh, I didn't. You have it in your packet on the preliminary values on the next agenda item. The preliminary value came in pretty high at 206 million 321 386. Okay. But that is just preliminary number. Now, if you remember, for a comparison, you have those charts in your packet. In 2020, the preliminary value came in at 159, 315, 440, and then the certified number came in at 167, 913, 921. Okay, so it actually went up. In 2021, the preliminary value was 173, 254, 967, and the certified value was 183, 857, 461. So hopefully, it'll go up a little bit, which would help us. But it's a very complex calculation, especially when you consider the new legislation, Senate Bill 2, that came down the pike a couple years ago. And yeah, it's until we get the certified, I mean, it's really hard to say. One thing I do want to share with you, just in the base budget, and I know, a lot of people think that there's a lot of waste and a lot of, we're wasting a lot of money, but I would say fully 95% is non-discretionary. These are just repeat things that have to be done on a yearly, annual basis. There's very little room for extra spending within that budget, and that's why you're looking at some of these priorities. When you look at this last year for gas, I mean, just the price of gas, I mean, that doubles, I mean, that line item. I mean, everything is going up. When you look at, and I'll say sales tax. Sales tax, we haven't talked much about that, and we've been doing very well with that. But part of the reason our sales tax has gone up is not only the growth in the area, and so we do have more growth, but we have inflation. So I think those numbers are reflecting a big increase in just your daily, when you go buy groceries, when you go buy gas, when you go buy things for your house that you need, everything is going up. And if it's going up for you, it's going up for the departments in all their daily items. They do a good job keeping it at a bare bones, and being very frugal with the budget. There's not a lot of waste in there. There really, truly is not.
So can we get Chief Fitch to kind of explain where the bunker gear and all his equipment is at this point in time?
Don't trip.
Tie my shoe. All right. Basically, what the bunker gear is listed on a priority is we didn't do it last year, and based off a replacement plan, we have to continue to do that, whether it be every year by 2 or 3 sets, or every other year by 6 or 7 sets. But we have to stick to that replacement plan because all the gear needs to stay within 10 years. When you start getting outside that date, then the regulations of TCFP and everything else will start coming down on you, start regulating. That kind of like TCFP came in today, we had no violations, so pretty proud of that. But it's Texas Commission on Fire Protection. And so that's where you get all the NFPA regulations and things like that. So to have that replacement plan, that was the priority for this year since we skipped it last year as far as gear. And then like the radios is just an upgrade. That's almost one of those things that could be put in every year because it's the same kind of like the gear, kind of that replacement plan. You just need to start working on that replacement plan. And a lot of that has to do with number of members and things like that.
And so 10 years is the lifespan of those suits then?
If you're lucky. As much as we go on fires and car wrecks and everything else, we're lucky to usually within 2 years, I'm sending it out for repair. And I mean, unfortunately, these are $3,000-$4,000 outfits. So usually within 2 to 3 years, I'm sending it out for repair. 6 or 7 if I'm lucky to get the life out of them. But 10 years is what's regulated. So we do take care of it as far as repairs and things like that. But it's just hard to put a number exactly how long it's going to last, to the fact, I mean, you're dealing with car wrecks and getting snagged on stuff and going over fences and whole 9 yards. But it's more of a priority of a stay with that replacement plan. Because if we start getting to the point, I mean, you saw the wastewater, there was probably 15-year gap in taking care of things. So it's kind of in this situation. If we start getting into the 2, 3, 4 years and not taking care of that replacement plan, then we're going to be in the same boat as the wastewater. We're going to be treading water trying to come up with gear. We've been fortunate on a few years. In the last 8 years I've been here, we were able to get grants for some of it.
You had to prioritize those 3 items. What would be 1, 2, 3?
I would combine them all, personally. It's. I say the radios is 3. The problem I have, the bunker gear needs to be on a replacement plan. But, whether we find donations for personal lockers, these guys, I've been here 8 years and we still don't have personal lockers. These guys have no place to put their inside stuff. I mean, their uniforms they have to take home. Usually when you're able to have inside lockers, you can keep some uniforms here at the station. One thing that we really want to get towards is when you go on these medical calls and you get fluid or you get blood on you and stuff like that, we're having to take it home and wash it in our own washers. Well, we have washers here, but we don't have personal lockers to keep our stuff in. So it's tough to say which one I want first. I need the bunker gear on a replacement plan because we have a replacement plan set up. If we don't follow them, it's going to fall. But man, being here 8 years and not having personal lockers, I'll let y'all make the decision. Any other questions?
I would love to add staff. I know City Hall needs help. I know we could always use more firefighters, more police, everything. Unfortunately, I think we're kind of at that point, though, that a lot of people are going to have to do without, because I think our main focus needs to be on the facilities and bringing those up to code, making them ADA compliant, making them safe for everybody. You can have the best gear available, but it's just going to go to waste if you're putting it into a building that is not going to, take care of it. So I think that we need to focus on the facilities upgrades. And I think the police department's the only one that put a priority in there, correct? As far as it's $30,000 for maintenance upgrades and whatnot.
Correct. Well, and if you go back to the conceptual scenario of a phased approach, so from a high level, you all have been discussing quite a few different scenarios over the last several years. But from a high level, you have stated that, and I think there's agreement that the areas that really need to focus on are PD, fire department, public works, in the community center, because this is where we publicly meet. I mean, City Hall, we probably, even though we lease, we probably have the best facility out of anybody. So, we could continue to lease. So, if you sell PD and the old school and then lease it back, allowing them to continue on, immediate, I mean, one of the first things would be to move Public Works over to a metal building at the East Wastewater Treatment Plant. Now, it is a $2.5 million price tag, and a lot of that is because of the dirt work that has to go. The metal building is probably the least expensive part of that process. And then, you know, we would need to look at potentially remodeling the old bank building and make it a multi-purpose, multi-use. It would be a meeting place for council and P&Z and parks, but then it could also be a rental facility. It could be maybe you guys have talked about potentially partnering with Wise County. You know, that's something to look at, and so that would be an estimate of 1.5 million. And then phase 2, we have had conversations, and Rolling V will be donating land, approximately 5 acres, and will give us approximately $1 million, unless we can get them off that and a little bit more, for a public safety facility. So that means that, you know, that would be like that third wave of phases that, you know, they would stay put in the meantime, but in the future, you know, 3-4 years out when the debt rolls off and we can do a small facility that could be expanded upon. You know, staff did a lot of work where we were looking at, you know, 10 acres, and we did a lot of research on what other departments are doing and how much it's costing. And I mean, Decatur, I mean, what are they spending? 19 million on just a PD, something like that. So, you know, we were looking at potentially $12 million facility on public safety, but even scaling that back to where we could build onto it, do a metal building, but then we could build onto it. You're still looking at probably, you know, $4 to $6 million, you know, and you've got the $1 million from Rolling V. In the meantime, the immediate need that I think you're referring to that we talked about a little bit is, and you have to be careful how you do this, but using sales tax, excess sales tax. And it's because there's been a pattern of being very conservative in what the estimate for those funds will be. You know, it started before me, and I've just continued that pattern of being very conservative, and every year, you know, it has been exceeded. And even this year, we are exceeding it. So we will have, I mean, right now we got the June figures, and I think last year it was 86,000, and this year it was 127,000 for June. So we're on track to be at, you know, 1.2 and above, depending. You know, the economy could tank momentarily. Who knows? That's the bad thing about sales tax. When it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's bad, and you don't have it. And right now, for us, sales tax, if you remember, you probably don't, but some of the graphics I put together last year, the majority of our funding is coming from sales tax to fund general fund. Not property tax. And that was done by design because we are keeping, that's one of the reasons, and I know nobody likes taxes and I don't either, but the bottom line is Rhome's property tax is way lower than anybody else's around. You know, we're at 45 and Boyd is at 66 or 68. I can't remember which one. And that's because one of the things that we do is we lower our property tax by using sales tax. So we have to be careful on how much we use of that sales tax, but we will have some delta. We will have extra. And so you could begin to, you know, I think I put an estimate of 200,000 to do, Staff has done a lot of work in looking at, doing inspections on our buildings and finding out what it will take to get the buildings up to code, just your bare basic health and safety items. And I think we can make a dent in that for 200,000. And that would be an immediate thing. And then that would allow, I think you heard, your police chief tell you himself that, they would rather stay in place until they move over to that public safety facility over in Rolling Beat Ranch versus trying to move around and maybe, going to the senior center or the old city hall and then moving over there. I think it would be less taxing on their resources.
I have a question. So this $200,000 that you just mentioned, do you see that that should be a budgeted item on the new budget, or do you see that as something that we look at our reserves and come up with a plan to do that more immediate?
Well, it would take, first of all, it would take a budget amendment. And when you're doing this, the mayor referenced it, but when you're doing this kind of a budget amendment, there needs to be an emergency. Now, I guess, a lawyer can debate what's an emergency all day long. I think I could get 10 lawyers and one would tell me what I want to hear. I'm kidding. I have to joke with them sometimes. But when you look at the state of our facilities, I don't know, Carvin, you can kind of speak to that, but at the state of our facilities, or you can budget it next year. Those would, go into reserve, and then you can budget those for that. But those repairs then wouldn't start until October. Do you want to speak to that? No.
Just say the courts have been very liberal in terms of respecting the opinion and findings of councils, the elected officials. So if you guys make a determination on the record that a matter is an emergency, the courts have usually deferred to your judgment. So that helps it.
Well, considering what the professionals have come in and said, fire inspections, all that kind of stuff, they think it's pretty bad. We've got a lot of electrical issues and plumbing issues too, but the electrical is really a scary thing. So I was wondering how we would even approach that.
Well, you'd want to take it on an individual basis, obviously, and you'd want to assess the individual expense that you're proposing, and you would want some evidence to support your position that it's an emergency, that it, we either through age or storms or something has, caused a deterioration, and we weren't able to budget for it in the past, and we've had to make an accommodation for it to deal with it.
Okay.
But again, the courts are not going to second guess in general. I can't say that 100%, but they're not going to second guess the elected representatives that are on the ground looking at the particular issue. And so if you guys get some evidence to support the determination that it's an emergency, I think I'll be able to defend that if anyone ever were to challenge it. But, we probably need to talk about a specific expense.
Thank you.
Well, and as a reminder, I think we can get more, but we definitely already have some in some of the inspections that have been done and what the conditions are.
Looking over the top one, obviously, employee salaries. It says employees. Is that just one employee getting the COLA and the merit raise?
No, that 60,000 is for all employees.
Okay, so all employees will be getting the merit.
Yes.
Okay. Just
it's 4% for every employee. Now, I say 4%. It's 2% COLA, and the 2% is based on performance.
So out of what Elaine said, whether we budget for it or out of surplus, what would staff's recommendation be to do that? Which would be better as far as fixing our facilities? Budgeting or using a surplus?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I think the more weeks that pass, I mean, we're going to get certified values in July. So the end of July. But that's going to give us, good information on the actual amount of money that we have to deal with for budgetary items. But I will, so, I mean, if you're kind of wanting to say, is it an either or it might be this and this. I mean, we could be in that scenario if you guys want to move forward immediately on facility items with excess revenue. Now, I probably wouldn't recommend doing it too much before July anyway, because we've got June, July, August, September. We've got 3 months left of sales tax. And so, we want to have at least, July under our belt, and really kind of see where we're at. And that's going to give us a much better picture. But I think it's doable. I think I'm being hopeful, but I think it's doable to do the facilities and take care of some of these items.
But we don't have to do them all at once. We can set which is the worst one and start there.
Well, absolutely. And yeah, absolutely. You guys can prioritize, and we have that information. We'll just have to rehash it. I mean, you guys probably are sick of it. The new people really need to really get a grasp on that, but we have that, and you guys can prioritize that phasing even of those immediate improvements.
And then there's also just the process itself. Once let's just say, building number 1, and that's going to take 30,000. I'm just making that totally up. Then if we take action and say, yes, let's do that, then we still have to go through the process of getting competitive bid, that list of things that have to be done, that's a comprehensive list, and then we have to let it out for bids, and it actually would be competitive bids, not an estimate.
Right.
And so that would take time as well. So the expenditure itself wouldn't happen in a day or two.
Correct. Yes, and just to be clear, the information that we have given you thus far has been based on estimates. Now, we did have an inspector, our third-party inspector, just come in and kind of line everything out for us. But we still would want to get that nailed down and, yes, get competitive bids.
So if everybody was in agreement, you don't need action tonight. Y'all are looking for direction on what to put into the budget, right? So if everybody was on board tonight that our main focus is fixing facilities, we could ask y'all to go back, look at our number 1 priority is facilities, and then you can talk to the different departments and say, this is what we can do for facilities. What is your one absolute thing that you have to have? And then we can kind of come back in July when we have better numbers and make a better decision. Is that something that y'all could work with, or?
Yeah, I mean, I would ask this. I mean, do you, are you all generally in favor of employee salaries, increasing employee salaries? I mean, if you're gonna, I'm looking at some of the items.
Well, we're not going to take a vote, but I'll just.
No, absolutely not.
I'm just going to say that we have. They are the operating machine. They provide the service to our citizens. We need to keep our employees, and they have to be at the top of the list in my way of thinking. Otherwise, the turnover causes all kinds of mayhem, it cuts down on progress, and it always translates into costing us more money whenever we have to advertise in order to recruit, and then we have to hire somebody to fit in, and they're not able to do really the full job. I mean, it adds up. It costs money when you lose an employee, and so I think for me that is an important matter.
I agree. I agree with the employee salaries for sure. I mean, especially with inflation. I mean, 4%'s not even keeping up with inflation right now.
Well, yeah, and I would point, I think it was Bridgeport or Decatur, one of those. I mean, they gave mid-budget increases recognizing inflation for their employees. Um, Well, and so I'm just trying to get an idea. I mean, yes, I mean, I understand facilities. I've already, known that. So facilities, employee salaries, just any other thoughts about, I mean, none of this is in stone. I'm not going to hold you to it, but if you can kind of give me an indication of.
Like Chris Lee. So if I had to pick three, it would be the salaries, the building improvements, and the personal lockers.
Okay.
And so confinement, tell the person thing.
Being mindful that this is other people's money. Because taxpayers are feeling the same pinch that everybody else is. 11% increase, $5 a gallon of gas. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. We also got to, we also still got to run our city, and we're not doing everything. I mean, so I think we obviously definitely need to pick, prioritize, do some of this. I mean, I understand we have the taxpayers paying for it, and that's the reason why we need to be mindful and not just go and blow all this money and do it else. But I agree with Michelle.
Got a bank and hid money from the IRS. Shocking.
I understand it's a difficult situation, but having that feedback is helpful for staff to hear, for me to go back and once these numbers start, coming in, come up with something to give you guys. Again, nothing is set in stone. We're going to be talking about the budget a lot. And so, I mean, it doesn't get voted on until, September. So we got time.
Over 1,000 according to the order.
Yeah, and I think you were right earlier with the comment that we kind of got lucky with the rolling V. They definitely helped out with a good portion of our budget of what they were asking for. So I think that makes it a little bit easier for us to pick other things, knowing that some of the stuff is already taken care of. So, yeah, I think those three items are pretty good.
Is this something we need actual action on, or?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right, any other discussion on this? Move along. All right, we'll go to P, update and discussion regarding 2022-2023 preliminary taxable values. This is also the city administrator.
Well, I kind of combined that into my discussion on the budget, so unless anybody has a question, we can move along.
Anybody got questions? Because I'm sure that we'll get a lot more this year than we got last year. Okay, let's go to Q, report of city inventory assets as required by section 1.2.045, also the city administrator.
This is something that you do every year. You've got that inventory list there, and staff goes in every year and checks that inventory and changes it, updates it if necessary. And so it's a report, so there's really no action needed. But if you have any questions.
Okay. got it in the packet. All right. Then let's go on. R, discussion, any necessary action regarding the timing, location of the executive session and regular session on the agenda, and that is the mayor. That would be me. I am suggesting that we move council meetings earlier, either 5:30 or 6. I believe there's only 2 of us that don't real, I mean, we're retired, so we don't work. But we're looking at employees that have to be at work at 8 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes we do go, you know, right now it's what, 9:19. But we've got, you know, some of our council does have to work. We've got employees that are being held over from the time they get off at 4:30, 5 o'clock until 7. So I'm just asking that the council consider a 5:30 or 6 o'clock start for the council meeting and do an executive session directly following.
No, it didn't matter, you know, if we start the council meeting at 6 for me, and then do the executive session. It's all the same. We're starting the executive session at 6, and we're
Okay.
starting the count. You know, it's a wash for me.
Okay.
6
Well-
o'clock is probably the earliest I would want to, because I do have to work.
Then I would like to switch them around, and if we can go to 6 o'clock, because I know this one gets up early in the morning, has to be up at 5 a.m., and Kathy works nights. So, you know, as soon as she lives here, she has to get to work. All right, but if we can go from doing the 6 o'clock meetings and then do executive session directly following, or even, would anybody be interested in a 5? You said you can't get here at 5:30. Okay. I'm just thinking too of employees that are, like I said, they're tied over from 5 o'clock to 7, and that would kind of ease up on them. And then for the times that we run so late,
Or we just work.
yeah. All right. But if we can go to 6 o'clock for meetings and then do executive session.
I make a motion that we move council meetings to start at 6 p.m. with the executive session following directly after regular session.
Well, you took the words right out of my mouth.
I'll second it.
Very good. Do I hear ayes all the way around?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. That's kind of that. Do we want to reconvene back into executive session, or is there anything, is it all urgent, or is it anything that can be tabled?
No, I think we need to go to executive session.
Okay. All right. We go to executive session at this point.
We need to go ahead and make the announcement of which section we're going in now.
Okay. It is 9:21. The council will convene into executive session at this time. You know, so, okay. All right, we reconvene from executive session, 10:21. And, as a result of executive session, need a motion for the authorization for, Ms. Northrup to contract with, former Public Works Director Sean Densmore, for 5 hours a week at $38 an hour to, and hire, and, use him on a contractual basis temporarily until a Public Works Director is hired.
I make a motion to authorize the city administrator to negotiate and enter a contract with Sean Densmore for contractual public works department work.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, for once I didn't write it down. I write down everything. McCabe made the motion on that. Who was the second?
Who was the motion and second?
McCabe and Kathy. Okay, and we need a motion to rescind.
I make a motion to rescind the
Council's-
third party.
Council's policy of a third party to witness conversation between the mayor and the city administrator.
I make a motion to rescind the third party witness between the mayor and the city administrator to include instead recorded sessions.
Okay. Ms. McCabe, is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, I got that. Okay. Anything else?
Yes,
Anything
I make a
future?
motion to authorize the city administrator to conduct the interviews and hiring process for a public works director.
Second?
I'll second that.
Who was the second? Very good, thank you. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, anything else for future items? Future agenda items? I would like to ask that I be included with the agendas. Hopefully, if we can work out something as far as talking, I would like to be included to have some input on the future agendas.
I would love that.
Okay, perfect. All right, make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Who's second? Okay, let's go. All in
Aye.
favor? We're out of here.